Hello everyone, I'm Matt Mitrovich, the Alternate Historian. Another map analysis today where I'll be looking at a world map depicting a very different 18th century. This is Steven Universe 1770 by Sean McKnight, aka Why Not 1989. You might remember Sean from the time I analyzed his map of America from Ghost in the Shell, which is, as I write the script for this video, the second most viewed video on this channel, so that's cool. Like that other map, Steven Universe 1770 is from another animated series called Steven Universe, a TV show created by Rebecca Sugar that I've heard good things about, but I haven't watched until now. And oh man, am I glad I finally checked this show out. I initially just planned to watch a few episodes to get an idea of what the show was about, and suddenly I've binge-watched most of the first 3 seasons. Quick spoiler alert, I'm going to try and be vague about the plot, but I might spoil some minor details in my analysis, so you've been warned. To summarize, Steven Universe is about a boy named, unsurprisingly enough, Steven Universe, the son of human Greg Universe and the gem Rose Quartz, who lives in Beach City. The gems are a magical alien race of immortals that colonized Earth thousands of years ago before they were kicked off the planet by Rose's army of rebels, the Crystal Gems, who rebelled to prevent all organic life on Earth from being destroyed. Steven spends most of his time with the remaining Crystal Gems, Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl, acting as their kid sidekick as they clean up the mess left behind by the gems. Throughout the series, Steven learns more about his gem half as he discovers new gem powers and unearths secrets about his family and friends. Quite simply, Steven Universe is an amazing show. It's got great messages about growing up as a boy and teaches the audience about gender and sexuality in an intelligent and non-patronizing sort of way. It's a style of storytelling that reminds me a lot of Gravity Falls, another cartoon obviously made for kids, but done so well that I will recommend it to adults. But as an alternate historian, what interests me most about this show is the world building. As I mentioned before, in the Steven Universe timeline, the gems colonized the Earth roughly 6,000 years from the present, which would put their arrival somewhere around 4000 BC when the first human civilizations showed up. Plus, since the Steven Universe wiki says they stayed around for at least 1500 years, the gems had time to impact human history. Now, the idea of ancient aliens visiting early human cultures isn't anything new. Even the, quote, History Channel, end quote, has a whole show dedicated to this conspiracy theory, and there are plenty of other fictional works that make use of it. These stories, however, tend to be secret histories, where our knowledge of history is incomplete or covered up, but otherwise, learning it would not change the course of events. For example, the Americans would still win the American Revolutionary War, even if it was alien space bats who gave ancient humans the idea for the wheel. In Steven Universe, however, the gem's presence on Earth is not only obvious, but an accepted fact. We see human cities built near gem ruins, and even see American money with a diamond on the back rather than the usual pyramid and eye. There's even an amusing episode where a local conspiracy theorist is disappointed to learn that all the weird stuff happening in Beach City was not caused by snake people, or Sneeple, but by Steven and his gem friends. Which means that ancient warrior rock women from space with bodies made out of light are a normal everyday occurrence for this conspiracy theorist. That's hilarious. And if you need an even bigger example of why this world is different, just check out this image of Earth from the show. Sure doesn't look like our planet, huh? Which brings us back to Sean's map. Right off the bat, you can see that the gem's presence on Earth caused some major geological changes. Florida is an island, parts of Mexico, Central America, India, and China are underwater, Iceland is missing, South America is bigger, there are several large islands in the Atlantic that shouldn't be there, chunks have been taken out of West Africa and Siberia, and Australia has been split in half. I'm sure I've missed some small details here and there, but you get my point. The gems have left their mark on Earth, both literally and figuratively. Now, I did read at least one theory that suggests the gems had nothing to do with why the Earth looks the way it does. Instead, the author argues it was because plate tectonics happened differently in this timeline. I don't agree with that theory, however, since we actually see what the Earth would have looked like once the gems were done terraforming it, and since it involved drilling continent-sized holes to the center of the Earth, I don't think it's a stretch to assume they were the ones who carved the Earth up. Remember, the show says that the gem's homeworld is not even in our galaxy, so if they're that advanced that they can travel between galaxies, I think they can move a few measly continents around. Anywho, what do all these changes mean for human history? Well, not much really. Some American state names are different. For example, Beach City is located in the state of Delmarva, which in our timeline is the name of a peninsula on the east coast of North America, shared by Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. The state that should have been Pennsylvania is called Keystone, and the state that should have been New York is called Empire, which are just nicknames for those states in our timeline. New Jersey is also just called Jersey, which makes me wonder whether the original Jersey in the English Channel is still above water in this alternate timeline. Other changes include Canada's flag being green and white rather than red and white. Also, some fans have pointed out that holidays like Halloween and Christmas don't appear to exist. Whether this was a deliberate choice by the show's creators or they just haven't bothered to touch on them yet, I have no idea. But when early humans are visited by arbitrarily advanced extraterrestrial women, one does wonder whether the Abrahamic God is a woman in this timeline. Also, Ghana supposedly exists in this timeline despite most of West Africa being underwater. Perhaps some other country is called Ghana, but one wonders whether the word Ghana would even exist in this timeline. Which brings up a major problem I have with the world building in Steven Universe. Despite the major changes caused by an alien race colonizing the Earth in a distant past, history seemed to have played out generally as it did in our timeline. Thus, Steven Universe 1770 doesn't look all that different from what our own unaltered Earth must have looked like around the same time. Which means that if the United States of America still exists and Steven Universe is present, then the east coast of America must have been colonized by the British, and the Americans must have rebelled around the same time to create the good old US of A. But the United States and any other European colonial power shouldn't even exist in a timeline with a point of divergence so far in the past. Now, to be fair to Sean, his map is still great, even if he is limited in how creative he can be with the political borders due to the parallelisms found in Steven Universe. From a technical perspective, the map looks like you could actually find it tacked to a wall in some classroom, getting old and dirty with age. Unfortunately, you can only zoom in so much before things start getting blurry, which makes some of the smaller text for the British colonies or the smaller states of Europe hard to read. Technical issues aside, I do like some of Sean's choices for how colonization game would have played out in this world. Since Portugal and our timeline got the early jump on the exploration game, it makes sense they would have been the ones that colonized the island chain in the South Atlantic. One does have to wonder, however, whether these islands would have acted as stepping stones between Native American and African cultures. Contact between them may even have predated any contact with Europeans, which would make for an amazing story, but as far as I can tell from the show, that was never considered. One map choice I'm iffy about is the Far Eastern Territories. Sean shows them being Russian, but I'm not convinced Russia would have overcome the roadblock that Tunguska Sea represents, since they were never known to be a maritime nation in our timeline, and the nation with the best navy would be the one who controls the sea. In my opinion, Russia would have gone the long way around, swinging through Central Asia and Northern China, one blood-soaked battlefield at a time. Also, what happened to the Mongols? That sea is smack dab in their homeland. If they don't exist, then how did Russia even come to be with... Never mind. To be honest, the more I think about it, the more disappointed I am that the creators of Steven Universe didn't go all out with their version of Earth. I mean, when you have aliens colonizing Earth, why not just have fun and create whatever nation you want? You can still have the story take place on Earth, but get creative with the nations and their borders. From an alternate history perspective, it would have made for a lot more interesting world rather than trying to fit the round peg of our timeline into the square hole of Steven Universe's timeline. I do understand why they did it. Change history too much, you may lose your audience, but if your audience can accept sentient rock mages, then I think calling the USA the Unified Provinces of Deweyland is not asking that much more from them. Still, don't let my complaints sway you from watching Steven Universe. It's funny, heartwarming, and the world building is okay if you can suspend your disbelief. I've always been a proponent of a good story trumping bad plausibility, and I'm not going to change my mind now. And as for Sean's map, it's another example of why he's one of the best alternate cartographers out there, and I'm happy one of my patrons was able to give me the opportunity to revisit his work. Well, that was all to say in the subject. If you like what I do, please comment, subscribe, share this video, or support me on Patreon. I'm Matt Mitrovich, the Alternate Historian. Bye.